Welcome, everyone, to Color Commentary. We are your popper commentators, Michael Pichek and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Oh, good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Upkeep stuff first. We are affiliates of Original Magic Art. Original Magic Art produces a whole ton of really cool magic accessories with either magic art that they've licensed directly from the artists or classic art from, ranging from the 1200s to loosely modern day. Super cool stuff, really high production value. They are a super awesome company. I've purchased stuff from them myself. I've never been upset with them and just good quality content. They even have a collection of tokens for Pauper specifically with classic art on them. It's really, really sweet. All of the tokens are relevant, some a little less so than others. The arrowhead counters, I think, are not exactly super popular, but they are a really cool company. They put out really cool products. And if you want to get 5% off your order, as well as supporting the show, we have an affiliate code. As you're checking out, if you use the code Commontary with the O and with two O's. I just said in the pre-show, I hope I don't flub this one, but there you go. Commentary, as it's spelled in our name, all caps. I'm pretty sure it's case sensitive. You will get 5% off your order, and we will also get a little bit of a kickback. So you're helping support the show and saving yourself money. Adrian, what's your?
I got a spiel. Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Gonzalez, co-host of the popular Popper Show, Color Commentary. I'll have you know that despite my fact that I missed it last week, I do still plan on making weekly video content. I'm sorry that we didn't make anything last week. My folks were in town, see my new place. We finally got it all put together and stuff. And between planning for the party and the actual party, I just did not have time this weekend. Throwing you guys a bone going forward, we're hoping to incorporate Aaron Rubin into the content rotation. I'm planning on setting him up pretty soon, so you can expect some extremely spiky content from him. I'm sure he's going to play Blue Red Delver nonstop, but we're hoping to have some more weekly content for you outside of the one video and the one episode.
Yeah, that'll be good. Anything else for you?
Should we talk about F&M? I mean, we're still doing F&M.
You're still doing F&M.
I'm still doing F&M.
Go for it. What have you been enjoying?
I'm still playing Boros. It's just really efficient. Our meta is weird. Nick has been playing. Marine Bro has been playing Rallygon. He's done really well for the past 2 weeks, and so I think he's sticking with it finally. So that's pretty cool. But we have a pretty diverse meta. There's no two same decks anymore. People still on Tron. It's just a very diverse meta, and I'm enjoying myself, and I think Boros is a very good deck.
Cool. And that's pretty much all the news from down south.
We have a couple new people, so that's nice. I think we weren't firing for a little bit, but thanks to some new additions who seem to be really into it, they've been showing up the past couple of weeks. We've been able to play a lot more, so that's good.
Well, that's super cool. All right. The only thing I have left to mention is we are on Patreon. Patreon is a Kickstarter for ongoing projects. You can pledge money to us per episode. At the end of the month, you're charged based off how much content we create. So, for example, if we miss an episode, which we haven't in quite some time, if we miss an episode, you won't get charged for content that you didn't get to enjoy. Our patrons get to hear episodes a little bit early. They get to have input on what we actually cover on the show. And, it helps justify the fact that we sit here for, 2 hours every week and talk about Pauper. But it's really cool. I'm glad that people are supporting us, and, it does help out. You can go there.
You can, patrons.
Yeah. You can pledge whatever amount. You can even set a cap on a month. So, for example, next month, heads up, is a month with 5, or actually this month, because we're recording in July. Sorry, I thought we were still at Wednesday. July has 5 Sundays in it, which means there will be 5 episodes this month. And for example, if you say, well, I want to donate $1 per episode, but I don't want to get charged more than $4 per month, you can actually set up a cap to make it so that you only get charged what you can afford or what you want to donate. But Patreon's really awesome. We're super thankful for people supporting us on there, and go check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Now,
let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. So Hour of Devastation got fully spoiled on Friday, and we're recording this on Sunday, so we got to it as soon as we could. So Amonkhet was kind of cool. We got a good amount of stuff. I think it was like 6 or 7 cards wound up making 5-0 lists. And we saw the return of a really good mechanic. We've seen some new mechanics that are really interesting. But first, I just want to throw this out there. They're doing the what they've dubbed the Masterpiece series, and in this case, they're called the Invocations. These have cool borders. They're like the Expeditions in Battle for Zendikar or the Inventions in Kaladesh block. And this time around, they're all sort of Nicol Bolas-themed spells. And we got a couple that were pauper legal in the first batch. And in this one, there is Diabolic Edict and Capsize. These cards are super rare. If you're playing online, they will show up in the treasure chest, though. And these ones...
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. They actually show up pretty frequently.
Well, sorry, go. Yeah, I think what you're about to say is the art is good and the border is bad, which I love this Capsize art.
Yeah, no, the art on these has been very consistently sweet, and it has also consistently been about 25% smaller, and that's no good.
No, it is no good.
But Diabolic Edict, super playable. Capsize, super playable. Both have really sweet art. They've got a funky frame, but, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Let's get into our mechanics for this set. So first up, we have Afflict N, where N is a number. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses N life. So it's kind of a Punisher mechanic where the defending player is going to get hit no matter what, but the Afflict number is not tied to the creature's actual power or anything. So it creates some interesting design space there. I really like this ability.
I don't think at common we got a lot of really good ones. I think uncommon was kind of the sweet spot for these. The one that I personally like is the one which is kind of a Ninja the Deep Hours. It has like Afflict 2 or something. You either take the damage or you let them draw a card, but it's like a 1/3. I want to say.
Yes.
So it's not.
I believe it's actually a strictly better Ophidian.
Yeah. If it can actually deal damage, then yeah, it's better than Ophidian. But I like that card a lot. I like that design a lot. And unfortunately, I don't think we got anything that cool at common.
Yeah, that is going directly into my Peasant Cube because I love I learned this recently. Apparently, they are referred to as Saboteur effects.
Is Saboteur the original card?
I don't know. I just saw that used somewhere, and I was like, huh. That's interesting. But,
So, no, there's not a card named Saboteur. That's just what the ability is called. Well, there's just so many magic abilities that are named after like the original card that did them. Loot is Goblin Looter or whatever.
Merfolk Looter.
Or Merfolk Looter. Sorry, yeah.
Rummage is named after Rummage and Goblin, though.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So we also have Exert, which is a new ability, which frankly I'm kind of shocked didn't exist already. It's a really neat design space. So when you exert a creature, it doesn't untap for the next turn. So in Amonkhet, we saw this on a lot of aggressive creatures where it was kind of like, oh, you can exert this, make it bigger, or make it deal some damage to someone, or all sorts of effects. But next turn it doesn't untap, so you can get like you can push through that last bit of damage or what have you. This set they actually used Exert on tap abilities as well, which I think is super cool design space, and I really hope that we continue to see Exert. I really like it as an ability, and I think it gives some interesting opportunities for design for Wizards. Any thoughts?
I agree. It seems so obvious that once you think of it, it's like, well, why didn't this exist before?
Yeah, it's definitely, and I really enjoy the fact that it is. They already immediately. It wasn't just all of these are aggressive, and people have cited, people who are better than me at draft have cited this as part of the reason why, the format is just so incredibly aggressive. But I don't know. I really like the design of this ability, and I'm really, really hoping that we continue to see this moving forward. Also, cycling has a return here. Cycling is cycling and then a mana cost. You pay the mana cost, discard this card from your hand, draw a card. Cycling just makes everything better. I feel like there's nothing you couldn't put cycling on, even if it was priced at like 4 generic, and not have it be better. But
yeah, and I know you're really upset that there was no Astral Slide in this set, and honestly, it would have been fine at an uncommon. And I feel like it would have been strong. It probably would have been too strong. It probably would have been like a rare this time around.
Honestly, I would have even taken. Yeah, I was gonna say like taking it to a rare. I think that would have been totally fine.
It would have been sweet, because what you could do is you could slide your own exerted creatures. Could you not?
Oh, maybe that's actually the reason why they didn't let it get reprinted.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That, and they also don't want it in modern.
Okay, that makes more sense. But yeah, that would have been sweet in this set, definitely. But I mean, that being said, we got a lot of cool cyclers. So
totally, and Cycling Matters is a sub theme within the greater block. We got, what was it? Horror of the Broken Lands in the first set, which is interesting. And notably, cards like Astral Slide had this old templating that was whenever you cycle a card. Now the new Cycling Matters cards are whenever you cycle or discard a card. So with any of these, Wild Mongrel lets you activate these abilities as much as you want, for example.
Yeah, I like this. This is probably one of my favorite mechanics in the block.
Yeah, I think this
just
is one
cycling is such a strong mechanic.
Yeah, if they made this evergreen, I would not complain. We also have Desert Matters. Desert is a land subtype. After the first Desert was printed way back in Arabian Nights, they had to type it as a subtype in order to make some cards work. But there is this element of controlling a desert or having one in your graveyard matters, and I'm just going to nip this one in the bud. We featured 0 cards on our list to discuss that have anything to do with deserts mattering.
No. I mean, we have a desert, but yeah, the Desert Matters cards are. The Desert Matters cards are not very strong, and I did I did message you, Mike. I think we should talk about the cycle, even though I don't think it's very good.
You know what? We could talk about that at the top of the show, just to kind of get it out of the way, since we're on the topic.
And we can explain why we don't think it's very good. Are you ready to start reviewing the cards?
Oh, yeah, I'm totally ready.
Okay. So I wasn't trying to like.
No. Go ahead. Do you want to give the formatting of, for example, the white one, Desert of the True?
Yeah, so this is a cycle, 1 each color. Desert of the True enters the battlefield tapped. It's of course a desert. Tap to add white to your mana pool, cycling 1 white. One that is to say it's 2 converted mana costs. It's 1 and a white. So, I mean, the reason that I don't think these are good. Why don't you go ahead and explain?
We already have lands that cycle for 2 generic, which is easier to cycle. We also have the ones that cycle for 1 mana of the color they produce. This just, like, it's... Unless the Desert Matters sub-theme was really important and gave us some really powerful cards, this just isn't very good.
Right. It just like we already have the cheaper version or one that's less mana intensive, and like you said, deserts, like the card, like one of the Desert Matters cards, and one that I thought actually might be one of the better ones was Wretched Camel, where if you control a desert and it dies, the player discards a card, and even that's like pretty bad.
Not exactly the most attractive upside for having to run tapped lands that cycle inelegantly.
Right. If there had been a card that was like search your library for a desert, then I could see it, because there are some deserts that are not bad. Like if you could just fetch them whenever you wanted. By then, I think of like Cradle of the Accursed, or the one that pings. Like if you could just tutor a desert whenever you wanted, it might not be terrible, because then you would have some sort of non-basic mana finding in the block, but that just didn't happen. So
yeah, there was actually one effect that did that. There is Shafet Monitor, which is similar to Krosan Tusker, except it
but it was an uncommon.
Yeah, it's at uncommon, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But let's go back and forth on these cards, because we've got a few. This was not a huge slam dunk success in our eyes, but there were some things that are worth talking about. And I'm going to start us off with God Pharaoh's Faithful, which is a white for an 0/4. Whenever you cast a blue, black, or red spell, gain 1 life. The only thing about this that interested me is the fact that it's got a very large body for a 1-drop. An 0/4 is not, the shabbiest of bodies.
To be frank with you, when I first saw this card, I wish it had been a charm effect, meaning whenever you or your opponent cast a blue, black, or red spell, because then it would be a slam dunk in some of the white lists, because you'd be able to fight Blue Red Delver very effectively.
You'd also be able to fight Burn with something that they would have a very hard time removing.
Right, and so maybe that's why it's not templated that way. But I would have liked to have seen it. I mean, not for Pauper necessarily, maybe for standard or limited or whatever. But I would have liked to have seen that be a symmetrical effects, and I think it'd be a little bit more powerful, because as it is, I don't know what blue, black, or red deck you're going to be putting this in to gain the life. You know what I mean?
Sir, may I suggest for just a moment, Black-White Pestilence.
Oh.
Black-White Pestilence needs both the combination of a way to make Pestilence less symmetrical, and also needs creatures to be able to live through smaller Pestilence activations. Godfair's Faithful ticks both of those. Like, every time you cast a black spell, you're going to gain some life, and you have an 0/4 that lives through. Like, if you're popping Pestilence for 4 or 5, like, yeah, you needed to, but most of the time you're only doing
Wall of Hope 4 through 8.
I would say Wall of Hope, but different, because the only 2 removal spells in the format in red, which is really the removal color of choice right now, that actually kill this thing, are Galv Blast, which is fairly popular, and Flame Slash, which is a sorcery.
Also, and Scred.
And Scred, yes. I guess I had forgotten about Scred. I don't know. This seems just resilient enough where it's going to soak up some damage in combat, and it's also going to gain you some life, and it's only a 1-drop.
All right, I can see that.
All right, what's next, Adrian?
We got Oketra's Avenger, the 1 and a white for a 3/1. You may exert Oketra's Avenger as it attacks, but you do prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to it this turn. All right. I don't know. This is already kind of a card. Do you remember the 2/1 from Gatecrash that becomes indestructible whenever it attacks?
I do not remember this, in fact. But
I can't remember what it's called.
Is that a common?
Yes.
All right.
Maybe it has battle. Maybe it has the one where it has to attack with 2 other creatures. Maybe I'm thinking. I don't know what it's called.
I think that's because that was Boros' ability, and that sounds like a very Boros card. So I tossed this one into the dock because a 3/1 for 2 is like a body we've seen a lot, and it's usually a vanilla 3/1. But this one has the upside of, if you cast this early game and your opponent doesn't have a blocker, it beats in. Late game, you can, once your board position's a little bit more established, you can use this exert ability to get in for a little bit more damage, or at least force your opponent to block it, possibly trading, or at least making sure that they, like, if you're going wide in a white deck, this at least takes up one of their blockers, and you know you're not losing it. I can see you're unimpressed.
We already have stuff like Porcelain Legionnaire. I don't know. I just don't think the ability is relevant enough to be a 3/1.
Totally fair. I will also, just as an art note, point out that while that may look like a spear, it is in fact a giant arrow, which I think is a cool continuity nod to the fact that Oketra has a bow.
Huh. Oh yeah, Oketra's arrow is my spear. I get it. It's good.
Yeah, very literally. Next up we have, yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I guess Porcelain Legionnaire is actually 3.
Have you ever cast Porcelain Legionnaire for 3 mana?
No.
Real question. Have you ever cast Porcelain Legionnaire?
Not in Pauper.
In Cube, I'm guessing?
Yes. Cube, yes.
Cube All-Star, but yeah. Next up, we've got Mummy Paramount. 1 and a white for a 2/2, so a bear, breaking even. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, Mummy Paramount gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And I kind of slotted this in because we now have white zombies. Is Orzhov zombies a thing? Do we have the support for it? Does white give them tools they didn't otherwise have?
So I don't know how to assess this. I don't think the other white zombies are really good enough. If it gave counters, then it'd be a much different story, right?
Oh yeah, if this gave counters, like that'd be pretty nuts.
I think really, I just don't know. I don't really think it's that good because all the good zombies are already in black, and I don't know if this is good enough to put them in a white. I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. I just get the feeling this card is probably not amazing. No, it's also the only zombie we looks like we have.
It was the only one that I included. A lot of the better zombies are in, what is it, Onslaught block? That was the old tribal one.
Yeah, and those are all black at common, right? I think that was a white black, like because it wasn't Putrid Warrior in that block.
No, because white black's tribe was clerics.
Yeah, clerics.
Because
there's just some zombie clerics.
Yeah, there was some overlap there, and there were also like zombies with protection from clerics. I don't know. It was a weird block. But I just thought I'd throw this out there because, boy, I can tell you, white black zombies is the sweetest limited deck that I will never play. I will never be able to draft it. It is very sweet. It's super synergistic. So what's up next?
Up next, we have Aerial Guide to a blue for a 2/2 with flying. Whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gets flying until end of turn. So best Windrake and lets you jump stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not the worst, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's the argument to be made for stuff like Scrap Skin Drake if you want Sling filling this role, or even what is it? Is Stitch Drake the one from Innistrad where you have to exile a creature in your bin?
Yes, Stitch Drake.
That's like a 3/4 flyer for 3. I don't know. It's interesting that we are getting a strictly better Windrake in a standard legal set, and I think
that's been a stalwart for a while.
Well, I was going to say, I think if I'm remembering correctly, Kaladesh had just straight up Windrake in it. So
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that in limited, and I guess what. If you slammed this in like a mono blue shell, this would make your Ninja of the Deep Hours a little bit better in non-flying matchups. But outside of that, I can't really see a huge use for it.
Right. I don't think blue decks are going to be playing this card. Let's go to the next one, which is potentially playable.
Yeah. Countervailing Winds, 2 and a blue. Counterspell unless its controller pays 1 generic for each card in your graveyard, and cycling 2 generic. So we got Rakshasa's Disdain in, I believe it was Fate Reforged, which was this minus cycling. And we also have Circular Logic in the format, which is this minus cycling, but with Madness for 1 blue. I've seen people talking about Countervailing Winds, and I don't know if cycling makes a card that didn't see play at all playable. Thoughts?
I think it's probably the best card we've reviewed so far on this list. Circular Logic is certainly the comparison here. That is Madness rather than cycling. So I think it is playable. Circular Logic is also good because you can discard it and just play it for use. So it might be a little bit better in that position, but this does have cycling. So if there was some sort of large control deck running around, I would wager that you might see this card pop up in there.
You know what? I really don't want to go into Magical Christmas Land, but I would have loved to see this and Circular Logic fused together in like Time Spiral. That would have been a super cool, because they did one example like that of a card where it had cycling and madness.
Yeah. It seems very strong, but of course, you have to pay both costs, right? Yeah. So how do you make it a fair when you can then the mana cost at the top just doesn't make any sense, because like true. Madness always costs less, right? So if you had a card that cycled in madness, I guess you would draw the card. So no, it's actually not a thing. If you had cycling and madness, it could be greater than the total converted mana cost on the card itself, because you would be drawing the card as well. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it would probably have to be madness blue or something like that. So it would become kind of a what is it? Dismiss? Is that the one I'm thinking of? The 4 mana counter a spell draw card from Tempest block.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think countervailing winds is probably fine in the right deck. Cycling, as we've said, this is just a strictly better Rakshas's Disdain. The catch being no one is playing Rakshas's Disdain, and if you are, I guess you're really excited that you now have the utility of cycling it.
Right.
Why don't you?
Let's go to our.
Let's go on to the next
one. This one I think is actually probably pretty playable too, and we're now reaching a critical mass of this kind of card in blue, where I wonder if you could just play a blue deck that does this. It's 1 in a U. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, Cunning Survivor gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn.
Yeah, so this is just straight up elusive Spell Fist, but instead of triggering on non-creature spells, it triggers when you cycle a card or discard one.
Right, and so I guess that's a bit of a difference there. I mean, it's a huge difference, but we're getting a lot of these blue cards where you do something and they get bigger and become unblockable, and I just wonder if that could be a thing sometime. I think the problem is that probably cycling and discard yourself is not that great in just mono blue, but I guess then maybe you play Circular Logic and some madness creatures. So
yeah, I don't actually know if there are any blue creatures with madness, and I am about to just real quickly go over to a website and find out.
Well, I guess what you could do then, you could play this in like the blue-green madness deck, but then I wonder if is it just not better than Wild Mongrel? Like, if it's Wild Mongrel just better than this, is what I'm saying, because that's also a discard outlet.
Well, I think the idea is you play both at the same time. So I'm looking right now, and we've got Circular Logic, which we've established as a quality card. We've got Just the Wind, which is unsummon if you madness it. Nagging Thoughts, look at the top 2 cards, put one of them in your hand, other into the graveyard, which madnesses for the exact same cost as casting it. Obsessive Search just is a cycle. It's just blue, draw a card, madness, blue. And that's all the blue cards with madness. And actually, I hadn't noticed this. At Common, there's like 24 madness cards. That's it.
Wow. I was also thinking you could also just have the blue cards where you draw and then you discard. Like then maybe this also gets a little bit better, because then when you discard the card, this also still gets bigger. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it does make the mode that you rarely see on compulsive research of pitching 2 non-lands, or technically you can pitch 2 lands, but you're rarely in that situation. Compulsive research, giving it a bit of upside. There's also, from the last set, we had Heckma Sentinels, which also had this minus the unblockable bit.
Right.
I guess the real thing for me is, why not just play Kiln Fiend?
Right. And I think that's the feel. Like, if you said at the beginning of the show, like, some of these cards are just kind of underpowered in regards to what we currently have. There are a couple of ones that I think are good. I think that Countervailing Winds is a potential, but yeah, I think we're kind of reaching for the barrel on this one. Why don't we go to our next one, which could be playable?
Yeah, Spellweaver Eternal is 1 in a blue for a 2/1. So, it's a piker, not super great. It has prowess. I'm already liking this, but it has Afflict 2, and I like this for the question it poses to your opponent. And the question is, my opponent has mana up, they're attacking with a 2-power creature. Do I block this to try and trade with it, or potentially just eat it if I have like a 1/3 or something and take the 2, or do I let it through and hope they don't have spells to pump it up? I don't know. This is an interesting one. I think the answer is you always eat it if you can, because 2 damage is not a whole lot, especially in blue decks. But what are your thoughts here?
I think you block it and then you hope to kill the creature, because if I was facing down this creature, I would block it because I'm either just going to take 2 or they're going to have to try and save it somehow. And they're going to spend spells to do that. So I guess in the worst case scenario, they like give it trample or something, and then I take the 2 damage and then the rest of the damage too. But I don't know if it's really that scary. One of my friends at work mentioned that maybe you'll play it in Blue Delver, but I just don't know what you would take out for it.
I would say if you're going to play it anywhere, I'd want it in something like a Blue-Red Blitz where you're just slinging spells quickly, so the threat of activation is a little bit higher, especially because I can see this getting goofy, like swing with this and a Kiln Fiend and 2 mana up and just going like, I don't know, Mutagenic Growth, Temur Battle Rage. I don't know. I think this card is a very interesting design. I like it a lot. I don't know if it's playable. I'm pretty sure it isn't, but maybe some sort of lean blue aggro list.
Ninja Bear Delver. Let's go to the next card, which sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go right ahead.
This one's called Tragic Lesson, and I actually like it a lot. It's an instant draw 2, so I think that's solid. Tragic Lesson is draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you could return a land you control to its owner's hand. It's 2 and a blue. So this is good because it lets you reuse utility lands, and as you've noted here, Mike, you make the decision after you draw, so it's not part of the cost to return the land. So even if this gets countered, you're not behind on resources, and you can also make the decision after you bounce it back. And so some examples of what I think would be good utility lands with this card are cycle lands, because you can always cycle them later in the game, or the gain 2 life land. But I was also thinking you could pair this with a black deck and play Mortuary Mire or Pajuka Bog.
Yeah, I think pairing this with black is really powerful. I think the cycling thing is not to be underrated. And I got curious. I wanted to see what we had at instant speed that draws 2 cards. And there's not a whole lot in Pauper. Like, we're looking at stuff like Artificer's Epiphany, draw 2 cards for 3. If you control no artifacts, discard a card.
That's the only other one that I can really think of.
We don't have Frantic Search. That's not one that we have access to. Hieroglyphic Illumination from the last set costs 1 more, doesn't have the land clause, and it cycles as well.
Right. I think that there's a way, though, to make this downside not a downside in the format.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Instead of viewing it as a downside, viewing it as an upside. And, sometimes, like, in the late game, like, bouncing a land and maybe having to discard to hand size the end of the world? Probably not. It also doesn't specify untapped, so you bounce one of the lands you use to cast this, and even if you have to pitch it, like, you're not that far behind. I think this is solid. What about, like, I don't know. Sometimes these cards are just hard to talk about because the synergy is so obvious and the downside is fairly minimal, I imagine.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't like this early game, though. I think that's the only thing. I don't think I'd want to play more than maybe 2 of this in a deck, just because... Ooh, actually, you know what? Let me hit you with this. What about this in Tron? What about this in, like, mid to late game in Tron, and if you haven't made a land drop for the turn, using this to pick up, like, a tower and play it again and get another 3 mana out of it, so it's functionally kind of free.
Huh. I like that. That seems good.
Yeah, like just being able to cycle 2 deeper into the deck, I think is pretty solid. I don't know. Maybe, again, with a control deck, your main concern is the early game and making sure you don't get murdered too quickly. But I think there might be something here for either, a Tron deck or, a teaching style blue-black control list, or even maybe, just tossing it somewhere as a draw 2. Sometimes I get reuse out of a land I've bounced. I don't know. I dig this card, and the art's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's solid, and I think it's probably one of the better ones we've covered.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like one of the more exciting and probably playable things that we've talked about today. Next up, we've got Grisly Survivor, which is 2 and a black for a 2/3. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And we got Horror of the Broken Lands last set, which was a 4/4 that got +2/+1. If someone can really make that work, I guess Grisly Survivor could be good. The art is incredibly awesome, though.
Yes, it is. It's just a Minotaur standing on a corpses with it's great. It's some great fantasy art, and I actually don't think it's that bad because it also goes in stuff like Tordex. Of course, I think Horror of the Broken Lands is probably just better in like every way in that deck because you can actually cycle it itself. Yeah. But I don't think this is bad. It's actually kind of like ATOG, but +1/+1 and it costs extra.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I'm actually curious about like either a Rakdos or more than 2-color Tordex deck so that you can have Horror of the Broken Lands and Fling.
You could also just play the black one, which is not instant speed, but
yeah, I think that's what's pulling me towards red. That and red removal is really good right now. So
yeah, you just give yourself some more stuff.
Yeah, Grisly Survivor sure is a card. How about you give us the next one, which is actually good?
R, Crash Through. Creatures you control gain trample to end turn. Draw a card. This is good because it triggers, if in Blue-Red Blitz, it triggers all of your creatures and it gives them all trample without having to do the double strike one also. Yeah, and that card is good. That card ends games, but this will pump your whole team and give them all trample, so there are no longer any profitable blocks, and it's for R. Yeah. The fact that this cycles for a red, and on top of that is making it so versus well, it doesn't. Yeah. Oh yeah, you draw the card. Yeah, it's kind of You're right.
I guess I shouldn't use that confusing terminology. Usually in sets without cycling, cards with minimal effect that draw a card can be referred to as cycling because it's a similar effect where you're replacing a card that might not be good now with the possibility to draw something better.
Well, I like that it's a red cantrip that does something.
Yeah, it's a red cantrip that does something. That
something is relevant.
Yeah, and I think, there's always been the debate between Slip Through Space and Shadow Rift and Apostle's Blessing, all those things, trying to like which one is optimal. I think if this was an instant, I think Crash Through would just be the correct call, but I could be wrong there.
I think it's still strong as a sorcery.
Yeah. I think I'm just saying as an instant, I think there would be very much less discussion on whether this was good and more, wow, this is really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I have noticed that Wizards is moving away from letting you grant evasion mid combat in this way. So I can totally understand why they would do that. But
I mean, people used to play Assault Strobe. I think this is just as good, if not better, because it pumps your whole team.
Yeah. The fact that it's creatures you control and it cycles is just nutty. I think this is a slam dunk. I don't know how many of them you run, probably 1 or 2, I'm guessing, but because it's not free, it's just cheap.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Is there anything else to say about a good card in this set? Oh, actually,
it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Next one's also kind of good and has a lot of people talking. The next one is Firebrand Archer, which is 1 and a red for a 2/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. So we got Thermo Alchemist, which has been a all-star in Burn, which was 1 and a red, 0/3 defender, tap, deal 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, untap Thermo Alchemist. So Firebrand Archer has got a more fragile body, but you don't need to tap it, so you can start slinging spells out of it immediately. And also has the downside of it can't tap for damage if you don't have any spells. I don't know. Is this better or worse or just different?
So we were actually talking about this in F&M. The argument against, which was my argument, is that it costs 1 mana. I mean, it has 1 toughness. The argument against is, or for, was that the 1 toughness actually doesn't matter, and that you can start going for this without having to untap with it because of what Thermo Alchemist works, and it gets in for damage by itself. So I do agree that the 1 toughness is probably not that relevant. You're probably not bringing in Electricity against burn anyway. And then I guess, yeah, I actually do think it's pretty strong. I don't know how you want to split them. I don't know if you want to run 8 of this type of effect in a burn deck. But I do think it is strong, and I do think people will play test with it.
Yeah, I could see definitely if you're on a burn list that's still using something like Keldon Marauders, this could potentially be something that gets subbed in for some of them.
Right.
I do think
Keldon Marauders upside is a little better.
Probably
because the upside is that you get to lava axe them also, but you only get 2 damage at the worst. So maybe this could be better if it lives long enough. Thermo Alchemist is also good because it blocks for what it's worth, and you can use it later without having to actually cast. If you have no spells, you can just tap it once a turn. So yeah, I really don't know. I think people will play with it, and we'll see.
You know what? It's worth mentioning also, Firebrand Archer triggers off of the 4 Curse of the Pierced Heart that most of these decks are running. So it does have a couple of additional triggers within the deck.
That's true.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out. I am by no means experienced with burn as an archetype in Pauper, but I could definitely see that this is either going to be better or worse, and I really honestly can't tell you which it is because both options have upside and downside to them. I guess the only thing about Fire, I'm kind of leaning towards the Archer, but that might just be new shiny toy syndrome. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's very intriguing.
Yeah, it is incredibly intriguing. Also worth noting, so things this dies to that Thermo Alchemist does not die to: early game Firebolts, Magma Sprays, Disfigure. There we go. Disfigure, Deadweight.
Yeah, this is definitely far more open to removal, so that's really why it remains to be seen, I think.
That said, though, there's a decent amount of removal. Like Bolt kills both of these things. Galv Blast. Actually, you don't need to hit Metalcraft for Galv Blast, which
dies to Doomblade.
Yeah, I mean, not to beat that dead horse, but I think the big thing is for black removal, both of them work equal. Most black removal that's not -X effects work equally well against these two. So you're not sacrificing as much ground versus black removal, but I can see the argument as to why this is potentially worse.
Right.
You want to take our next one?
Yes, sir. The next one is Thorned Moloch. Isn't that a demon? It's 2 in a red. I think
it's Moloch. I want to say.
It's 2 in a red. Creature Lizard. Prowess. Thorned Moloch has first strike as long as it's attacking.
And how big is it?
It's a 2/2. I don't think this is a good card.
I don't think it's a good card, but it does have a very high threat of activation. I don't know. You know what? Give me my 1 per set review where I just put a bad card in. Think of it as a test. I'm making sure that you're still, paying attention while we podcast.
What? I'm just kidding.
That one took me a moment, but I appreciated it. It's been a busy week.
No problem. My biggest thing is it's Gray Ogre. I mean, it's better Gray Ogre. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a Gray Ogre.
Man, we've got to stop comparing stuff to cards that came out, frankly, probably before a decent amount of our listeners were born.
Dude, it's still a Gray Ogre.
Yeah,
it's a Gray Ogre is a red card that's 2 in a red for a 2/2 with nothing else. So yeah, this is better than that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 2/2 for 3. You know what I mean? Like Affinity has 2/2s for 4, has 4/4s for 2.
Yeah, that is fair. I'm going to take this next one. This is actually a good card.
Obada.
What song is? Oh, it's a Beatles song, isn't it?
Yeah, Life Goes On. I don't know the name.
So this card is called Life Goes On. It's green for an instant, you gain 4 life. If a creature died this turn, you gain 8 life instead. So we already have Feed the Clan, which is gain 5 if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, gain 10, but that's 1 in a green. So this is easier to keep up, and we already are seeing Stompy decks that are using Hunger the Howl pack up to 4 copies per deck. And if you're already enabling Hunger fairly consistently, being able to enable this probably shouldn't be much harder. Is this just better?
So here's the thing. The trigger on Feed the Clan, the decks that are playing Feed the Clan, it's easier, in my opinion, to get the Ferocious. Or it's Ferocious, right? Yeah.
Yes.
This costs less. You gain less life, but you get 4 life instead of 5 for 1 less. So I think it's still definitely playable. The 8 is really what you want to do. So maybe you could play this as tech in our favorite rogue deck, Pig Trinket, and then it would be good. I think you would have to have a deck dedicated to the Morbid strategy in order to do this. And I guess you could also play it in Stompy a little bit easier. I think.
Yeah.
Because
I hear what you're saying.
It's a great answer to Searing Blaze.
Yeah. Because these style of instant speed life gain effects, excuse me, are usually best against stuff like Burn. So having this be good against one of Burn's better cards is probably not a downside. I will say
theoretically also better against Atog Flang if they sacrifice a Frogmite or a Mirror Enforcer.
Actually, they have to sacrifice for the Fling.
That's true. Yeah. So that could be pretty good there.
Alive.
Yeah, against Fling combo.
That's so actually. Ooh, I think you did point out something good though. The fail case of not having the big mode enabled is like it comparing like gain 5 for 2 versus gain 4 for 1. That is actually like that 1 mana for 1 life is a pretty harsh rate to pay, I imagine.
Like, yeah. I agree. The upside, obviously, 10 life is obviously better than 8 life, but I do like that this costs less.
Numbers do still work the same way I remember them, but
good call.
How about you take us to our next colored card?
We have Oasis Ritualist, 3 and a G, 4 mana total, for a creature, Naga Druid. Tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Exert Oasis Ritualist. Add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool.
We talked about this.
Yeah, it's Freed from the Real combo. It's a 1-card combo with Freed from the Real to make infinite mana. Survives Bolt, but still dies to Galvanic Blast. So this does improve the Freed from the Real deck. Yeah. Unfortunately, you cannot tutor for it like with Drift of Phantasms, like you can some of the other ones, like Axebane Guardian, but still strong, very strong.
Yeah, so we've had a couple builds. We have the Defenders build that uses Axebane Guardian and what's the other one? What it uses like Wall Roots, Axebane Guardian, and
it's another one. It's another one from Zendikar. You tap it, it has green mana, and then you can filter it. Yeah, that's it.
There we go. And there's that version that ramps into stuff very quickly and plays a lot of blockers that can tie up the ground. There's also the version that slaps a bunch of enchantments onto a land and then uses either Wind Zendikon or Life Spark Spellbomb to turn it into a creature and just do the combo, make infinite mana and kill you somehow. Oasis Ritualist, I think, presents somewhere in the middle. Like, you still have to have this thing survive a turn, but maybe you go into a plan that involves Vines of Vastwood and possibly still using Giga Drowse to make sure your opponent can't do anything on your combo turn. I don't know. I like this card. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's cool to see them using Exert paired with a tap ability so that you can kind of have modal creatures that aren't completely busted.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think this card is cool. And so we got less good cards than we really thought we would overall through the cards we reviewed today. But there's still some that have a lot of potential, which is always exciting and is honestly the best we can hope for in a standard legal set. Obviously, we're gonna have a field day when the other master set comes out this year. But until then, we kind of get what we get. We get standard level commons.
Yeah. I think that our big gets from this set, just because people have been listening to us talk for quite some time, I think the big gets here are going to be Life Goes On, the green life gain spell, Firebrand Archer, and Crash Through, and then Tragic Lesson. I think those four are going to be the big ones that actually see play.
And of course, a couple weeks from now, we'll talk about if we see one of these in the challenges, or we'll talk about if we see, in the 5-0 leagues. So we're not done. We're not totally done yet. Maybe we'll be surprised by what's good, but I agree with you. I think those are going to be the good cards here. We do have one more to go over real fast. It's Survivor's Encampment. It's a desert version of Outcast Settlement. What's it called?
Holdout Settlement.
Holdout Settlement. Thank you. Sorry. Where it's a Springleaf Drum land. It taps for a colorless or tap an untapped creature you control. I will mana any color to your mana pool. It's a functional reprint, although this one is a desert.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly exists. If you need Holdout Settlements numbers 5 through 8, this will certainly do that. It's got. I'm going to go with this is better art.
Than it is. It is. I'm going to get some of these.
The bolus horns I like. I know there's been some criticism for the storyline of this block where it's kind of.
What is
bolus.
The story? I don't even know.
Okay, Gatewatch shows up. There are gods on this planet. Turns out Bolus is controlling everything. Bolus builds this weird culture of like being tested and then, being killed in a ritual so that you can come back and serve the gods or something. And it turns out he's just taking them, basically dipping them in that bright blue fun dip stuff and turning them into zombie warriors. And the big thing was, people were upset that it wasn't clear as to why he was doing this, rather than just going and raising the dead and instead enslaving an entire plane.
Why is he doing it?
Because he's a supervillain. That's basically it. Like they're just turning him into like Lex Luthor. Like
lame.
I don't think it's a particularly good storyline decision, but then again, I also don't pay that much attention to the storyline. He does beat the ever-living crap out of the Gatewatch, apparently. Because
do they win?
No, they leave. Like Bolus just gets to do his thing. Like he's canonically basically still just shy of an old walker, like pre-mending. I don't know. It's a little difficult in storytelling when you have a villain that is unbeatable, because setting him up this way makes it suspect if the heroes ever win, but having an unbeatable villain means you can't have the heroes win forever. I don't know.
Gotcha.
All right. I'm looking. We're getting pretty close up on an hour here. Do you want to do our little card guessing game?
Sure. All right. Our first one is 1 and an R. I already have one pulled up. From Legends, creature elemental. When blank dies, it deals X damage to target creature, where X is 3+ the amount of damage dealt to blank this turn by other sources named blank.
Oh, no. I know this. It has the word burning in its title, correct?
Blazing. Close.
Blazing. It's like Blazing Fury of Freet, I want to say.
You're close. I'll give you one more try. Blazing Effigy.
Blazing Effigy. Okay, I got confused with what is it, like Brittle Effigy from one of the core sets. Yeah, no, I did know that card because it's a very, very strange design where you're supposed to like have 4 of these, have one of them bolt another one that then does 6 to another one that then does 9 to the next one, and then something gets hit for 12.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, old cards are weird. Give me another one.
This one's a sorcery from Antiquities. Sacrifice an artifact. If you do, search your library for an artifact card. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the sacrifice artifact.
It's transmute artifact. I know this one. It's a Tezzerator classic. It lets you shift your Sword of the Meek into a Thopter Foundry for free.
Right. So next we have a 7 mana sorcery from Shadows over Innistrad. Discard your hand, search your library for 3 cards, and put those cards into your hand. Then shuffle your library.
Now I want to
black 5.
I want to say that this is See the Beyond.
Behold the Beyond.
There we go. I knew it was something very Beyond. I know the art. It's like a big old tornado of black soot.
Right. Yeah.
I opened this and Triskaidekaphobia roughly 50% of the time when opening packs for this set. So that was a lesson. Hopefully at some point Triskaidekaphobia spikes to like $10 and I get to be happy.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to do one more and then do our outro?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll do one more. This one is 3 converted mana cost artifact. Looks like it was also originally printed in Antiquities. 2 tap, draw a card, then discard a card.
2 tap, draw a card, discard a card. Originally in Antiquities?
Yeah, it's been reprinted. It was originally reprinted as an uncommon Antiquities. It's been a rare in Chronicles. It was a rare in Commander 2014. It was a rare in 7th, a rare in 5th, and a rare in 6th.
So I'm going to tell you that I straight up don't know the name of this, but is it a tome by any chance?
It is a tome.
It's not JM Day tome, right? That's just draw cards.
No, that's another one. This one costs less, but it also starts with a J.
It also starts with a J. Oh, it's Jalum tome.
Yes, that's it.
Because I was going to say I know a messy tome, the one that draws 2, pitch 1, but okay, all right, I got one. How about you take us out of the show?
Yep. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our patrons. Consider supporting us if you like the show. Please check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or an idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games and L. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.